The types of pots and pans that are used in a commercial kitchen can vary greatly. I am only going to cover the bare basics of the types of pots and pans that you might encounter. Pots and pans are also going to differ by the material that they're made out of. That is going to impact their care. That is going to impact how they hold and retain heat and how they cook food items. Not all pots and pans are appropriate for all food items. A pot is a larger vessel. A pan is more shallow. A pot generally has two handles for the ease of carrying, and a pan generally has one longer handle. Most of these are utilized on a range top, and then there are some that are utilized in the oven. Do not ever put something in the oven that has a plastic handle. They do make silicone handle covers, which will prevent burning in the kitchen from the very hot handles. A handle can get hot just from cooking, and it can also get hot on a gas stove from the heat of the other burners. You can also burn yourself if you put a pan in the oven and then you take it out and forgot that you did that and grab the handle. So I'm going to go with the deepest and go to more shallow as I progress. So the stock pot is going to be the deepest. Some of them have a spigot in the bottom, and that means that you can actually pour liquids out of the bottom easily. Those generally, you have to take them apart and make sure that they get very clean, that you don't get bacteria that grows around and inside the gaskets. If you've ever seen a water cooler or a large beverage dispenser, a lot of times they have a little spigot at the bottom too, and it's the same kind of idea. A sauce pot is going to be not as deep as a stock pot, and it is usually going to have one handle. So even though it is a pot, it kind of breaks that rule of having two handles on either side. You can have a sauce pot that has two handles on either sides. There's also the rondeau. So the rondeau is a medium to large in the bottom, and it is much more shallow than a sauce pot or stock pot. And this is typically used for braising. Almost always they have a very thick bottom and they distribute heat very well. So you want that very thick bottom for browning. You want that heaviness so that you can not burn the bottom of your product. A double boiler is a pot in which the lower vessel is going to have a small amount of simmering water, and then the larger vessel is going to fit over top of it, and that is where you actually put your food item. Melting chocolate is one of the most common things that we do, or making a cream-based pie filling, or anything sometimes that has cream that could scorch on the bottom. So the purpose of this is to gently heat the bottom of the pan utilizing convection instead of conduction, and you have a much gentler heat and you're a lot less likely to burn on the bottom of your product. Most of the time in my classroom, we use a saucepan and we can use a large metal bowl, like a stainless steel mixing bowl that fits over the top very well and very nicely. Most commonly, what we actually do is melting chocolate in the classroom. So when it comes to pans and it comes to skillets, there are a wide variety of types of skillets. The cast iron skillet is commonly used. Many of my students have experience with these at home or even with someone that is older. They've been around for a really long time and they last for a long time. So they're very heavy and they're very thick. You are not generally tossing food in there. So they are not really for sauteing. They are the best heat conductors. If you preheat them slowly, get them really nice and hot. If they have a good seasoning base on them, which I'll discuss in the care of pots and pans, and just keeping them washed correctly and oiled. They're not difficult to care for, and they're very inexpensive. And if they get burnt, then and somebody mishandles their food item in there, then they're really easy to fix. A saute pan is going to have sloped sides, and that is designed so that you can actually flip the food quickly using the wrist motion that is demonstrated in some of my videos. They are a thinner metal, and they're strictly used for sautéing. They're not very good for pan frying or for searing quite as much. And so you're going to be using a high temperature and a very small amount of high temperature oil for sautéing. You want to make sure always that you preheat your pan appropriately, and that you before you add the oil, and that you add the oil and allow that to preheat as well. When you view the cooking methods instructional videos, there are more details on preheating of the saute pan and actually how to know that you're right and how much oil to use. So the saucepan, it's going to be a little bit more medium. It's going to have straight sides, smaller than a stock pot. A sauteur is going to have straight sides and be about the same size of the saute pan, but instead of having the slope sides, it has straight sides. This is typically used for shallow poaching. You can also use it for pan frying. So the fish poacher is not something that I use very often. It is a long, narrow metal pan. It usually has a rack in the bottom to raise or lower the fish up out of the cooking liquid or down into the cooking liquid. A crepe pan is going to have basically no sides or very little sides. So very, very short, slightly sloping sides, and this is designed to create crepes in. A wok is generally a large bowl-like pan that is designed with more of a kind of a flat bottom, and it is designed to do stir frying in, which is a really hot, just like sautéing. Very little amount of oil, very high heat. So hotel pans are one of the most commonly used types of pans in the culinary industry. They come in a wide variety of sizes. They hold food, they prepare food. They're utilized on steam tables, in hot holding cabinets, or in the refrigerator, baking, roasting, or poaching. Sometimes they come in various sizes and lengths. These are standardized sizes when it comes to the hotel pans. So they are designed, almost all of your steam tables are designed to fit a series of them, either one whole hotel pan or two halves or four quarters, and then they all kind of stack in each other as well. There is a video associated that breaks down the hotel pans for you outside of this PowerPoint. A roasting pan is going to have a rack that holds the item up out of the liquid that is going to roast out of it, and usually does not have a lid. A sheet pan is a baking pan, and a full sheet pan will not fit in a regular size oven, but your commercial equipment is designed to hold full sheet pans. There are also half and quarter sheet pans that are commonly used, and these can be used with or without greasing, or with or without parchment paper. It will save your sheet pans if you utilize parchment paper, but they're not very expensive. A sheet pan does have a tendency to get, with use, it has a tendency to be like a cast iron skillet and get that kind of seasoned look on it, which some people prefer not to have, and parchment paper will help prevent that. A cake pan, it has straight sides. They come in a variety of shapes and sizes. They are designed for baking cake. It is recommended that you do prepare the pan and the bottom, making sure you grease them well, and then use a parchment paper ring or even a wax paper ring in the bottom of those. A springform pan is one that comes into two different parts, and so it has a side that will actually spring open and release it from the bottom. I utilize these for layered items that I do, and then for the cheesecakes that I bake. And then a muffin tin is small little round cups or molds. You can use them with or without liners. It's just really important to make sure that you grease them very, very well. If you are going to use the liners in the bottom, then you probably don't want to use particularly a cooking spray because it can make the cupcake or muffin liners very greasy. So usually I only use that type of cooking spray if I am not going to use the liners.